two from politics and from Fife politics. When I was first elected in 1988 to Kirkcaldy District Council, and I made a suggestion that, as well as maternity leave, that our Labour group might consider bringing in paternity leave as a policy. And one of the more senior and more elderly and very male councillors looked at me and said, you know, Hen, you'd be better just be glad you're elected and maybe sit there and listen for the first few years and learn from those who've been there longer than you have. And well, yeah, 2 years, 3 years later, 2 years later, I was leader of the council, so I didn't listen to him. But I also remember my very first Labour group meeting, and these were all my political colleagues. They were meant to be on my side. And Susie, I know you've heard this one before, as have you, I think, Dianne. I asked that there be no smoking for the whole day because it was very hot. It was the month of May. We were in that big committee room on the ground floor that looks out onto Kitty's in the townhouse. And it was a gorgeous day. It was a Sunday. And we were to be there all day. So the rule was no smoking until after lunch. So I asked, given that it was hot and it was stuffy, could we just have no smoking for the whole day? And I was politely, or not so politely, invited to F off back home to effing Ireland and pick effing tatties. The same member told me that if we changed the livery of Kirkcaldy District Council to grey and green, if it had green in it, a council van would never get into his ward ever again. He was a good orange man.
Sorry, Christian. Would you say that was a discrimination against women, though, or your ideas of bringing in paternity leave and having a no smoking? Could you put that down to because you were a woman?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
It was very definitely female. I mean, you know, female Irish Catholic. I didn't tick any of his boxes.
Yes.
But female was definitely it. Uppity.
Right, okay.
Yeah. And I have had in my time the assumption that as the only woman in a meeting, for example, I was there to give out tea and coffee and pass the biscuits. And I have seen people wait for the male to come in and chair the meeting. Now, nobody ever said anything, but you could tell that, oh, okay, it's her. So that subtle stuff is still there in a lot of workplaces. It's still there. It's there if you're minority ethnic community. You know, if you're black or brown or mixed race or whatever, you stand out in any way, people will make assumptions about you. And so the training helped. And I suppose you get a tough skin. And you do in industrial catering anyway, because, you know, the assumption that all you're there for is to cook and hand out the meals and no brains are required because that's women's work. Toughens you up.
A lot more of my stories are about some of the really subtle things around kind of networking and cultural things around the workplace. And again, none of this is very much not from Greener Kirkcaldy or the voluntary sector at all, but in a lot of industries, there's a kind of cultural thing of, you know, I've heard stories even about Fife Council recently, you know, the discussing business in the pub culture sometimes. And I worked a long time ago after graduating university. I worked for a couple of years in an investment bank in the city in London. And there was a lot of socializing and networking, and one incident where I was invited to go out to the strip club with the lads. And I didn't actually, I chose not to, but that was where the Friday night drinks after work were going to end up. And so that was very exclusive, really, because no woman was going to go along with them. And certainly it was also exclusive of anybody who had children or a reason to go home or caring responsibilities. So the kind of long hours culture and the business networking in the pub is definitely something that can be quite challenging and really quite insidious in terms of how it excludes people. But fortunately, Greener Kirkcaldy is very inclusive of who goes to the pub, or at the very least of who's invited to the pub when we do go. And we also make sure that we have kind of coffee networking and daytime social events as well, so that the people who do have caring responsibilities or need to go home at 5 o'clock for whatever reason are still included in the networking and the socialising.
Listen to Christine and Suzy, I kind of think sometimes maybe I have been the subject of discrimination, but because it's that subtle, it just goes over my head. And I suppose because I've never really thought of myself as, and this is going to sound really bizarre, but I've never really thought of myself as a woman in the workplace. You know, I'm just working, so it's never really been an issue for me. So maybe I have, but I just haven't. Unless it's like slaps me in the face, I probably wouldn't even notice.
Yeah, my examples, I mean, I remember them because they were unusual.
Yeah.
It wasn't the norm that I would be treated like that. But I didn't expect to be treated like that either. And, you know, maybe you give off a vibe of, well, I am the eldest of 6. You know,
yeah.
you're going to do what? You're going to say what? I wouldn't. If I were you.